Welcome everybody, and I'd like to call to order the Whatcom County Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force Steering Committee to order this morning for December 5th, 2024. It's 11 a.m. and we're meeting in a hybrid format this morning. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people, who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Welcome, everyone, to the steering committee meeting. My first order of business was to welcome some new folks to our steering committee, and that's some of our J-pop committee chairs. And I see we have Tasha Thompson has joined us. Hannah Sloan and Richard Gleason, I believe, were scheduled to join us, but I don't see them. Just so Tasha has a benefit, let's just go around and do a quick round of introductions. I'll call on you as you appear on my screen. So I'm Barry Buchanan. I'm chair of the steering committee, chair of the Whatcom County Council, and I'll pass it over to Raylene.
Raylene King, Whatcom County Superior Court County Clerk, and I am the chair of the Legal and Justice Committee.
Hey, Birdie.
I'm Birdie Safford. I'm a member of the IPRTF, and I chair the Index Committee.
And Seth Paul.
Seth Paul Sidhu, Whatcom County Executive.
Peter.
Hey, Tasha. It's so great to see you here. As you likely know, I'm co-chair of the IPR. Thanks.
Stephen.
Stephen Gockley, former task force member and current co-chair with Dan Hamill of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee.
And speaking of Dan Hamill, Dan.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Dan Hamill, Bellingham City Council president and co-chair on behavioral health with Stephen.
All right, I see Hannah has joined us. We have our staff folks with us today. That's Jill Nixon and Jenna are helping us out. Tasha, why don't you go ahead and then we'll go with Hannah. You're muted.
Hi, I'm Tasha Thompson. I am a co-chair of the J-pop committee, a detective for the City of London, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone here. Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha. Welcome. And Hannah.
Hi all, I am Hannah Sloan, the other co-chair for the J-pop committee and a program director with Lifeline Connections for some of our outpatient and intensive-based services for the community. Thank you.
Well, great to have you aboard with us today. Just so you kind of get an idea of what the steering committee does, we kind of set agendas for the main task force meeting, and we talk about kind of any new ideas any of our folks come across. We try to kind of vet them out here in the steering committee. So it is exactly what you might think of a steering committee. It kind of guides the work. Our next item is the Incarceration Reduction Task Force Committee calendar, and we'll have Jill Nixon present that.
Hi, everyone. It's in your packet. It's just FYI, and let me know if you see any potential conflicts. Dan, I did my best to work around the Bellingham City Council meeting schedule, as always. If this is something you'd like me to screen share, I can. Otherwise, it is what it is. Thanks, everyone.
Any questions for Jill or anything on what you've seen so far? And I see our other task force co-chair has joined us. Heather, we did a round of introductions for our new folks on the steering committee, which is Tasha Thompson and Hannah Sloan. They're our co-chairs of the J-Pop. So Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm really excited to see you. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to get my baby down for a nap, but I'm here and listening. So it's nice to see all of you.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, our next item is the year-end report, and I see it's Holly is supposed to present this, but I don't see Holly in my screen.
Yeah, Jill here. I think Holly and Marty actually are traveling right now. And so in your packet is the final draft that Jennifer Moon put together. So if you have any feedback before it gets published to the council IPRTF packet, sorry, the IPRTF packet for its meeting, let me know, I would say by the end of day tomorrow.
Okay, so little homework there. If you have any comments or any questions, anything about the year-end report, fire them Jill's way, and we'll take care of that. Next is the behavioral health legislative priorities. This is Peter and I. The list has been accumulating in the executive's office, and we were just kind of passing that along to the task force to see what the county is working on. We, as you may know, we have our own advocacy now through our own lobbyist, Josh Weiss. He's a great guy. I met him down in Vancouver last week, and he'll be working hard on these issues for us. I think I'll let Peter go ahead and go over the details and turn it over to you.
I'm not prepared to go over the details. I am kind of in the dark. I have been asking to see this this list for some time. We got a peek at it maybe a month and a half ago, and it looks great. All the things are that are on the list, I give a big thumbs up to. Around details, since I don't really have access to staff, I cannot say that I know any details. I see that Seth Paul's on the call. Perhaps he could speak to how these were decided on, any details you'd like to share with us, but without access to staff, it's simply not something I can speak to.
Okay, Executive Sadhu, do you have comments on the list?
You asking me?
Yes. On the legislative priorities that was developed, by your office.
I don't have handy in front of me right now.
I can screen share if you like.
Sure. Yes. Okay, so this is something that we have to work on, and it's still that there's way that if another thing need to be added, we will add it. Behavioral care center. This is it speaks for itself that we are asking for more money for capital construction on that. Youth co-occurring treatment facility. That's another priority for us. We have almost gotten the full capital money for the crisis relief center, or you can call it 23-hour facility. We are short about a little over $1 million, and we have made a request to Peace Health. Myself and Mayor Lund, we met with the CEO of Peace Health, and I think there's another meeting this week between our staff and their staff to see where they stand. But we are looking for more funding for operations. Increased medical reimbursement ratepayers, which we all know that we are asking that that we should increase that payments. You want to scroll up a little bit, Jill? Okay. Medicaid for the jail, that that I think there has been some movement, And I believe that there is a asking for this from not only Whatcom County, many other counties. So we are very hopeful that this will get passed this session. Housing policy modernization for individuals, and there, you know, we are trying. Housing is the most complex thing, and I think we are stumped that there is not enough capital investment. And my thing is that if the government can incentivize from the policies, some of the policy structure from the state level coming to the counties. I will give you an example that we had 100 feet buffers around wetlands right now. As of January 1, they're going to be 200 feet. So this is mandated by Department of Ecology. It's something of the state does that. And these rules impact different locations, different places, different counties differently. But when they sit down and make a policy statewide, they don't give us any leeway. There are places in our county where I would say, yes, let's put 200 feet buffer. There are places that we 50 feet buffer could be adequate. Size of wetland, type of wetland. I think that the pendulum is swung so far that local jurisdictions are struggling, really struggling to create more land for housing, or the price of housing is going up. So we don't know that these things will be taken up, but we still asking for more, you know, funding for whatever larger models that, you know, we can develop in each community. But there are some fundamental flaws, like these are the things that we seek, but why we cannot get it is entirely different issue, and nobody's looking at that issue. So we keep working with the rest of the counties or people and see that how it can benefit our community. But I have reservations about that just doing money will not solve housing problem. It is the policy. See, governments don't have money. We are in a different thinking that money can solve housing problem. But yes, money, not the government money, it's the private investment. How we can incentivize more private investment into housing will ensure, and that can be changed by policy. Okay.
Looks
Of course,
like Peter has a question.
yes. Oh, yeah, sure. Let's hear. Okay, Peter, go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you, Sam Paul. Boy, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying. And I'm just curious, in the legislative session with lobbyists from Whatcom County,
Yeah.
what the strategy is on some of these items. And what you're talking about, wetlands, it goes to the heart of bureaucratic nightmare that is causing just untold issues in housing and likely with our jail build out and everything else. And so I'm curious what sort of practical practical things our lobbyists can do to work with others to move the needle on that. And I see number 8, which you haven't approached yet. The ITA is at the heart of so many of our problems here in Whatcom County. What can be done about that practically in Olympia in this session? And then one other question, going back up to number 1. My understanding is you'll be looking for money for the design phase of the behavioral care center, which makes sense. I'm hoping that we're going to be looking ahead to the next section or the next session to get capital funds
Yes.
for that facility.
Yes, I agree. Look, let me talk about the wetlands. So I've been having several meetings with the mayor, Lund, and because we too are more, and of course the other in the all small city mayors also. So, and everybody is putting this as on their priority. What we are seeking from the state, that if they can let us get these wetland banks smaller size, but without involvement of Army Corps of Engineers. Army Corps is so busy, you give them application, they don't even touch it for 3 years. Like, it's not even like you can say that, hey, this is pretty straightforward case. You just look at it and probably in 4 hours, you can give your analysis or review. They don't.
Looks like we have a freeze.
Private or public, which can be approved by ecology and the local consultants. I mean, that would make a lot of sense, because we can have wetland banks in the areas where we are doing the construction in the same region. We can consolidate wetlands into one area and then make the rest of the land usable. What we have been doing for last 25, 30 years, which is we are hearing that results today, 20 years later. Those are the decisions. That's what happens. We are doing postage stamp mitigation. One here for 1 acre, half acre, 4,000 square feet of wetland now needs mitigation. 4,000 square feet of wetland. It has the same rules as 10 acres of wetland. How asinine this is, right? So we are asking for some relief to expedite that wetland banking, that we can do it in 2 years, and we can encourage private investment or private people to do their own wetland bank. But then they allow, if you're doing it on your property, only you can use it. Like, if wetland, we are saving wetland, what if I save it for my neighbor also? I'm going to follow the rules. Like, some of these rules are really out of whack. So anyways, that's what we have, a joint front on that on the wetland side. We will ask for the design money right now for the behavioral care center, and we'll ask for the other funds, and improving the Involuntary Treatment Act. I think we are all suffering from this, and when the people are not able to make a decision for their own health, we are barred from that. We are professional people. Doesn't mean the politician will do that. There will be a doctor, there will be an expert and everything, but they are not allowed without consent. When we declare them, they have mental and behavioral health issues. So that also doesn't make sense, for their own protection. We are enhancing their freedom to give them better health. But we are saying the freedom to leave them in the same state trumps the treatment. So this is again something that has gone too far, and we need to fix that. Well, there are other questions, so I will go to Dan next.
Well, I just wanted to kind of comment on what you just said, that there's definitely a lot of alignment around ITA throughout the region. And I think, Sat Paul and I just had a meeting with the Swiss group, the 5-county Northwest County group. And we were talking about behavioral health priorities, and this is certainly going to make that list, as well as with the ASO. So I think, we can get a lot of voices in on the ITA thing. It's so important. Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to highlight some of the things that Executive Sudhu just mentioned. So for the wetland mitigation, the city is all in on trying to figure out what are solutions for that. So this goes back to the housing stability component that we always talk about. And I just want folks to know that the per credit cost for wetland mitigation, like buying a credit in a wetland mitigation bank, is about $400,000. The process typically takes about 10 years to go through. It should be way faster than that. And like to remind everyone that when the Trump administration was in office, during the first time, nothing really proceeded within wetland mitigation. So that was a real issue. We weren't getting anywhere with that. So, look forward to another 4 years of that. And then for workforce, I think that was one thing that was mentioned in the list, but I had an interesting conversation with someone who runs the SUDP program and the Human Resources program over at or Human Services program rather over at Whatcom. One thing that we lack is a program locally for MSW qualifications, and so we can put people into the workforce that have the bachelor's level for social work, but we don't have the master's level. And many of the jobs that are created here and pay well or better at least are at the master's level. So Western does not have that program. They would need to be a willing partner into that program. I'm doing very exploratory efforts when it comes to trying to lift that thing off the deck and see if that's even possible. But it'd be helpful to have state funding to pilot a program so we could get a cohort of, maybe, I don't know, 50 people per year through that. It takes a couple of years after their bachelor's. And then to the comments to the ITA, and I'll be brief here, I know I'm kind of going over time, but I think that's got to get fixed. And speaking of willing partners, we could pass legislation, or we could help pass legislation at the state level. But if we have contracted partners that are just not willing to go hands-on or don't have a secure facility, then I don't know what the meaning of that would be. But I do support looking at changes to that, and I'll end there. Thank you.
Yeah, you're so right on that, Dan.
I just
Stephen,
want to add.
oh, go ahead, Seth Paul.
I just want to add one thing to what Dan just said, and I can talk for hours. Our educational institutions are completely out of touch with the needs of the community. They just want to wrap a degree around you and keep you there for 4 years, make you spend $200,000, and then they leave you out like a fish in a river. Go swim. There is no correlation, zero correlation to what the community needs and what they are teaching. That they are supposed to prepare. When we say workforce, university is a workforce educational institution. Amount of money we spend on that, amount of people spend their money on top of the money we spend on the universities. Every student spends $70,000 minimum a year. What is the outcome? Unemployable. Skills we need, not prepared. If you go, I remember during ARPA money, we offered $1 million to Western Washington University, that you start a program of master's degree, MSW, take your educational program teachers who are unemployed, give them a 2-year. Never happened, because that's not their interest. That is not, can you imagine? That's not the interest of an educational institution, to produce people who are needed in the community. Okay, anyways, I'll stop here. Stephen.
Thank you, Seth Paul, and thanks for sharing this list. I'm particularly focused on the Medicaid reimbursement for providers. Yeah. 3 years ago, a multi-county advocacy effort with this same framing hit the legislature. They dropped multiple millions of dollars into that. But unless you understand what's going on the ground level, like we experience here, what happened was they considered the providers, the insurance companies who manage the care for Medicaid, and they gave the money to them. And we heard a year later that only 20% had filtered down to the pay of the actual direct service therapists. And so we continue to have hiring problems, retention problems, and crippling shortages. 2 years ago, Mike Parker and I sort of way behind the curve, tried to develop a list of priorities that targeted, made the legislature target specifically direct reimbursement to direct service providers. I don't think Representative Rule quite understood what that was, and there wasn't enough time to develop a coalition. We came back with that on our list again last year. It didn't really get any traction for reasons unbeknownst to me. And since it's apparent there wasn't real coordination with the task force in developing this list in-house, and since I don't read that specificity in that bullet point, I'm concerned that we're not going to get that money directed to where it needs to be. If we talk about Medicaid reimbursement providers in the general way that it's listed here. So I don't know whether that's for you and Kayla, whether it's for the county lobbyist, whether it's for the coalition of counties who must back the same kind of approach. But somewhere we need to have the legislature direct the healthcare authority in its contracting to make sure that money gets to those people who actually provide treatment services, not the agencies and the administrators and all of that. And I don't see that, and that concerns me, because we'll go another year and misdirect some money if we aren't specific about that.
Stephen, you are welcome to contact me or Kayla especially. And we can dive deeper into that and modify our instructions to the lobbyist so that they fit that.
Great,
Heather?
we'll do that. Thank you, Paul.
Heather.
I also wonder if there might be an opportunity for a delegation from Whatcom to go down to Olympia and share concerns. I wanted to share and offer the Chuckanut Health Foundation has been partnering with the King County Prosecutor's Office. We're conducting a statewide listening session on the Involuntary Treatment Act. We've completed the Whatcom County listening sessions, and we've spoken with, we had a number of roundtables. So we have a comprehensive report that includes perspectives from citizens, the designated crisis responders, the friends and families of those impacted by the ITA system, people who have been through the ITA system, hospital staff, law enforcement, peers, prosecutors and public defenders, and service providers. So it's a really comprehensive look that I'd love to offer to the lobbyist and like share what does Whatcom County actually need. We got all that information from all of those holistic perspectives. And for today too, I really want to say that one thing I learned through all this is that for the involuntary treatment, you need either a secure withdrawal, let's see, a secure withdrawal, it's a SWIMS, very specific, secure withdrawal management stabilization facility, or an evaluation and treatment facility. And right now, our emergency department is really the only place where people go and they're being burdened with, like, you got to do heart attacks and, behavioral crises. And so I think I'm hopeful. Can someone tell me today, is our behavioral care center going to be designated as a SWIMS or the other thing so that we can do ITAs there? Because that's if we miss that opportunity, that's a big deal. I think it should be licensed to be doing that. So
Heather, can you share that report with through Jill with the steering committee?
I would love to. I would love to share it. I started final edits on it this morning at 7 a.m. So it's up and I'm working on it, and I can't wait to share because it's really a good, solid, helpful findings and guidance about what we need to do.
Thank you.
Peter.
It wasn't easy to get this list out of the executive's office, and I'm really glad we're having the conversation now. It seems a little late to me. And if we're spending a lot of time, the IPR is spending a lot of time, and we have over countless years educating ourselves about these issues. And we are ready to go to Olympia to testify, I believe, on many of these issues. We just need to be brought in. Your staff really needs to, I am convinced that we're missing opportunities here because, for instance, Stephen, until today, had not been asked about all this research he and Mike Parker had done, and he can help, and we can help, but we need to be brought in.
Okay, we will do that. I will direct the staff. Another thing I want to share with everybody is that this year we have gone our own ways. We used to have Bellingham, Whatcom County, and Port, one lobbyist. Now we have three. Means we parted our ways, everybody. So we have three different ways now to reach this, and hopefully in next couple of years we'll know that doing this is how effective it is. But I will definitely direct my staff to reach out, and this list is work in progress. If there are other items to be added, or we will definitely consider that. I'll let them know. Thank you.
Yeah, anything you want to communicate to the task force, Paul, through your office, just shoot
Yeah.
it Jill's way, and
Yeah.
she can make sure it gets distributed.
Sure.
Dan.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief here. So I agree. Sat Paul, we Executive Series, we did split up with our lobbyists, and that's kind of how we went, which is fine. I do see some overlapping items here. I'm looking at the list right now for the draft. There are many municipal needs that we just have to deal with. We need capital investments that's just the way it goes, including like things as kind of not mundane, but like not related, skate parks, things like that. But we have to do those. We have to look at those. I want to go back to you, Heather. You had brought up about ITAs, and were you mentioning the behavioral care facility that would be at La Bounty? Is that the one that you're referencing?
Whatever's in our justice implementation plan that we are about to build. Yes.
Okay, so you're not talking about the crisis relief center at Division, is that correct?
No.
No,
Okay,
but
good.
I mean, I just think we need it designated to be, we need a place that we can bring ITA commitments to that is not
Okay.
the ED in the hospital.
Okay.
So if it's the behavioral care center, whatever the licensing and like design requirements getting in now to make sure that it's dual purpose, right, would be advantageous.
Okay, I think that this is there's a broader discussion here, and I don't know that we can get to it today, but the Crisis Relief Center is a 23 hour, 59-minute, whatever. So it's a day basically. I don't know how ITAs would work in that situation.
No, they will not.
They've been very clear about that. They're not doing ITAs.
Yeah, I just think we all need to get on the same page when it comes to that. But and then the other two facilities are the Ann Deacon Center. So that I think that discussion has been, questions have been asked many times, and then one central for St. Joe's. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Raylene.
Thank you. Just to piggyback off of Heather's comments, and I'm happy to send you all this information, Heather, it might be helpful, is we just got all the information not too long ago in reference to all the forms and all the changes that need to happen within the court system in regards to House Bill 1877 regarding behavioral health and ITA hearings, and how that we're actually holding those hearings and what the requirements are for the 23-hour behavioral health center, and what can and can't be done on the court side. We're streamlining some of our processes now with trying to use the e-filing system to make the court system easier to work with the hospital, but they don't have the greatest location for that. So being able to use that 23-hour, and that's even on the form that was just done by the state that went into effect December 1st, that has to do with the 23-hour crisis relief center, and is that where the treatment's being provided, and that's part of the ITA hearing specifically. So I'm happy to send that all to you if that would help. And anybody else that would want that information, because it gives you all the information that you would possibly need for that.
Tasha,
So kind of piggyback on what Raylene said, and my understanding is the behavioral health attached to the jail is voluntary. The option is be booked or seek treatment. So it's not an ITA, but that within the jail, we would build a wing or a section that would be more specific to those concerns. But unless things have changed dramatically and the state has to provide more of the ITA facilities, if I understand, maybe that's what I'll have to read the House bill that Raylene just mentioned to see what that changes. But yeah, it's a difficult one with this whole changes because you've got your constitutional Fourth Amendment rights that are something to, it's going to be a huge issue for changing any of that law.
Mhm.
yeah. Stephen,
Yeah, this last ITA conversation is a little concerning. I'm looking at a screen of the people who are waist deep in this stuff and have been for years. And we obviously have differing understandings of the ITA process and what's needed. I certainly would like Raylene's information to go out along with Heather's report when that comes out. But I'm wondering whether it would be of value to the task force, or at least Dan's and my committee, to have a 101 presentation on ITA procedure, because the first step of an ITA procedure is a 72-hour hold. So even asking whether the Crisis Relief Center is a possibility for that belies a lack of understanding of that process. And the 72-hour hold is fixed in state law. There's no discretion on that. That's where you get evaluated, and maybe you get longer treatment than that. So I'm thinking we all don't understand at the same details and the same process that we're talking about here as one of our top legislative priorities. And I'm just wondering how we can sort of deepen our understanding and make it more commonly shared as we work on some of these policy issues.
point, Stephen. Sheriff Tanksley.
Yes, and I do agree with Stephen, and I also think that we should bring the prosecutor's office in with this, because a lot of this is rooted in state law. So having that 101 and possibly asking the prosecutor's office to chime in, I think would be good.
Maybe that's something that we should think about for the entire task force, a 101 on this.
Exactly.
Bertie.
Yes, I think there's a couple of parallel issues. One is addressing the current state law and how we can work within it. There's also, as I understand, a move to change the state law. And there are model states that have been very successful, which I can't name off the top of my head, but we could certainly find them, where they have changed the state laws around ITAs and then been much more successful with the treatment of substance abuse disorder and that type of thing. So I wouldn't like to lose sight of working for the changes, and yet at the same time, we clearly need a process for helping people under the current law.
Yeah, absolutely. Heather?
I'd love clarification on what Tasha just shared about the understanding of the behavioral care center being optional versus a place where, if it's truly going to divert people with behavioral health or substance use disorders, will we really not be able to do ITA holds there? And how useful will it really be if it is just optional? Do we know that for sure? Or is that still part of the design process moving forward?
Heather, I'll jump in here. My recollection is that we wanted the Ann Deacon Center to have an involuntary component. That was the law enforcement hold that, and the providers could not manage the certification level that required. And so that fell by the wayside there. So I think it's a pretty complicated thing, and all the conversations in the early stages, which is when I was involved in them, were that the behavioral care center would be a voluntary facility.
I think that's a mistake if that's how it's gonna go. But
Peter?
Somewhere way down on the agenda for today, and I don't see that we're gonna have time to get to it, is a proposal I am putting forward for a work group within the IPR to focus on models around the behavioral care center. And this would likely parallel work that hopefully is going to be done by the health department. But here in policy land, it would be excellent time for us to really be focusing on these issues. I can see that there's a lot of energy around it. There's been if you read my proposal, I detail a lot of the different communities that are working with this model, and I have a zillion questions for our prosecutor's office around what would best practices look like here in Whatcom County, here in Washington State, compared to Tennessee, where we have seen this, and Ohio, where they're implementing their own version of it. So I hope that there's interest in a work group.
So
Thanks.
that actually, Peter, that's on the agenda for the task force for December. That's that bottom, that's items for December task force agenda.
Yeah,
And-
I'd love to, and I'd love to have everybody read that proposal
Yeah.
in advance of that meeting, and maybe we could have a robust conversation around how we would put that work group together.
Dan?
Yeah, I just want to speak to Heather's question and her opinion that if I heard it right, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that having the care facility be voluntary might not be the best way to go. So I don't know how we do this. Maybe we get some advice from prosecution and maybe judges. It's common to use the stipulated order of continuance to provide for care, especially those that are going through competency restoration, things like that. So why couldn't we have that same kind of program set up for the care facility? So I think it's a question that needs to be answered, and I would eventually ask the task force to weigh in on an opinion if we're able to provide care for folks in that facility versus them just walking away. Thanks.
Hannah?
Speak to Dan's and one of Heather's things. So I think Dan's right in that when we went to Tennessee, they had like stipulated orders of delayed or deferred prosecution for individuals who went to the behavioral care center. So that was my understanding, is we would try to do something like that. And I think that would be really awesome. So it'd be voluntary, not truly involuntary, so it's kind of muddy, but that would be awesome. And then regarding the ITA and Deacon, last time I was talking with Renee over at Crisis Triage, she said that they were ready to go and had everything set up to do ITA holds. So I don't know, maybe there's just some mixed messaging and crossed wires that we can clarify with one of these bigger meetings and presentations.
Thanks, Hannah. All right, well, that was quite a robust discussion on our legislative agenda for the county. It just shows how many things are going on and how much need there is throughout, the county and our region for things. And appreciate all the work you did in your office, Paul, putting this together. All right, Justice Project Implementation Plan, that's scheduled for me. The only thing I would have to report is the J-POP has had now its second meeting. I was unable to attend. I was at the County Leadership Council down in Vancouver, Washington. But things are going along well. We've seated our J-POP. We've elected our co-chairs, and they are so graciously are attending here today. So I think Peter, do you or Heather have anything you want to add about the J-POP piece and what your observations have been?
I'll go first. I am really excited about the J-POP committee. I think there was a really great last meeting to set the stage for how do we think about what data is important to measure at that population health level, which is the whole point, right? We want to see reduced incarceration where appropriate. We want to see people get better because of going to jail. And so I think that we had a really fabulous presentation on results-based accountability that helps everyone kind of start to speak the same language. And then at the next meeting, we can actually, what our idea was to crosswalk with the implementation plan using the results-based accountability language. What are the population health data or even the program level data indicators that would tell us whether or not these different pieces of the implementation plan are successful or not? And so we'd match up, here's the data set that goes with this part of the implementation plan. And that's kind of the whole point of J-POP, right? Is the oversight of success and metrics for the implementation plan. So people have felt like it's a slow start, I think, but I would argue that it's actually exactly where it's supposed to be. And we're doing the forming, storming, norming of figuring out the lanes and how all of the connections work together. So, and I'm really excited about the leadership that's emerging. So thank you for the co-chairs being here today from J-POP too. I would welcome you guys sharing how you're feeling about it as well.
Yeah, I was going to call on them as well, for sure. Peter, you have anything before they go?
Yeah, Heather did a great job there of updating. I just one concern that I have is that we're so far behind on data on our data projects that it is a little hard for me to see how it is that we're going to have the data necessary to do the work in J-POP. And I think that there are some workarounds, but it's because we can't wait a couple years for the perfect system to be put together. I do believe that among the various agencies or divisions of the state or the county that are represented on this call, we have the data. It's just not in the form that we're needing it to be in, but the data is there. And we need to figure out some workarounds so that we can give J-POP the information that they need to help monitor the implementation plans.
Yeah. Heather?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Peter. It reminded me, this is related, but just to make sure everyone hears it, and you can all tell me if I'm totally off base in saying it. I do not know yet if the Village Reach contract that's going to do the data stuff is actually going to accomplish any of the things that we are hoping for. And so I have concern about that JAG grant leading to the Village Reach contract. And I don't really understand how it's going to help. And maybe I don't understand and I need a deeper dive, but I just want to say that out loud to this steering committee for the record.
Okay, thanks, Heather. So Tasha, your observations so far of the J-POP.
So yeah, just second meeting in. I'm excited. I wasn't entirely certain exactly, and the last meeting gave a great clearer view of what the expectation is of the J-POP. I'm excited. Peter and I had a conversation about data as well. You know, for Bellingham, I was an Intel detective and went to crime analysis training in New Orleans and up in Canada. So I have a somewhat background and as it comes to collecting data pertinent to law enforcement. And so I'm hoping we have our agenda meeting on Monday with Hannah and Richard and Marty. And so I think we'll finalize the agenda. I'm hoping to really like drill down on what exact data everybody needs, what is going to be most necessary to get for you guys so that we're collecting the correct data on that. So I'm looking forward to jumping right into that.
Thanks, Tasha. I don't know about everybody else's screen, but you are coming across in black and white and you're a detective and that is cool. It's like an old Humphrey Bogart movie or something. So, Hannah, what's your thoughts on the J-pop?
Yeah, I'm super excited that we're finally up and running. I think Peter nailed it. We're a little bit behind and I wish we could have started sooner, but now that we're here, you know, we need to put in a lot of work and try and get us on track to making these projects happen. And I'm excited about how we'll be able to view the data because I know I have a hard time pulling data myself for our jail program and other stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that overlaps.
Thanks, Hannah. So Satpal, did you want to, oh, go ahead. Before we move to Satpal and the administration, what about Raylene? You have a question, comment?
It's just a comment in general. I know, you know, one of the things that we've had issues with data is there's so many different silos that we have to deal with. The other constant is we have so many different people entering data into the system. I don't know that you're ever going to get around it, that law enforcement officers don't always get the same information from a defendant when they're arresting them, from when they actually get booked into jail. Their names sometimes change, their race, their ethnicity changes. Sometimes there isn't race and ethnicity. Even looking up people's address and phone numbers, you know, when one officer puts Peace Portal Drive in, the other one puts Portal Drive in, the other one says Peace Arch. You don't have consistencies across the board. I know a lot of it's training, but it's going to be extremely difficult to hone down all of that data. So I think as we work on the data and we look at things, we have to take everything with a grain of salt and remember it's never going to be 100% accurate.
Very true. So Satpal, is there anything you'd like to share from the administrative, from your perspective?
No, I think that we have only a few minutes left. I would let others have. If there's something new, I will bring it to the next meeting. Thank you.
The one thing that I'd like to share, and that Satpal and I are both kind of involved in, is we are doing some interviews next Friday on the owner's rep slash, there's a whole list of things that consultant's charged with, but owner's rep was one of them. So we're going to be talking to three different contractors next Friday and doing more evaluation. So more to come on that.
Yes.
Peter?
Yesterday I'm going to be in those meetings and as a citizen representative, and
Good.
I am very excited about that meeting. I woke up at 4 yesterday to to read all three of the RFP responses, and we've got some great talent who are responsible for some of the projects that we've seen and that we like so much, who are putting themselves forward. So it's going to be really exciting to meet and decide on direction.
Stephen?
I'm on the periphery of this. All I know is that Village Reach has been put as the crux of a lot of this stuff. And so I don't understand the delay in the contract. And I certainly don't understand Heather's comment about concern that they'll even be able to accomplish what the tasks were. At some point, I think at least this whole body deserves a briefing on what those comments mean, even if it's after the fact. And so I would request that at some point.
Mhm.
Yeah. Bertie?
I'm just asking a really basic question, but I'm a little confused. What is the project that you're interviewing for this week?
Go ahead, Satpal. He'd have a better explanation.
Let me
Okay.
explain. So to start the jail process, we do not have in-house expertise because it's a 150 million plus project. So we are hiring a contractor company who will be with us for next 4 years. They will work for us as Whatcom County. They will,
Mhm.
it's called owner's representative. So when we are sitting with the contractor who have so much expertise and intricacies and complexities of construction and the agreement, when we develop a contract agreement, there's so many loopholes and so many things we have to cover. So this is our first step. So we are hiring a owner's representative, which is also like a company. So they will work on our behalf as our project managers, as our consultant, and stop where cost is concerned or some design is concerned or cost escalation is concerned. All these steps throughout the construction project, they will be our representative. So first, that's our first step, and we hopefully have them in place by end of this month.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
one of the things about it is that they come along with all these subject matter experts in all these different areas that are of great concern to us. For instance, trauma-informed design, a lot of experience with justice facilities like the one that we're building, best practices, operations, all the various things. It's like there are 3 companies that have brought together teams in all these subject matter areas to in hopes that we're going to choose them. And we got some good decisions to make. But in each case, I think we have access to some really excellent teams, national quality.
Go,
For
Satpal.
us, we build jail once in our lifetime. But these people have built 10, 20, 30 jails already under their belt. So that's expertise we will never have. Right?
Mhm.
So that's why we are going that route. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, looking forward to that meeting next Friday. So, okay, we'll move to our last item, which is just a list of items for our December task force agenda. And Jill, did you want to talk about this? Did you have anything you wanted to say, or it kind of speaks for itself?
It speaks for itself. The 2 top items, the calendar and the year-end report, I'd like to keep those top of the agenda. And then, of course, we're still not sure if we'll have a discussion about the Supreme Court decision, if that's going to come down between now and then. So that item will likely remain on the agenda as tentative.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any questions about any of these items or anything else you are thinking? This is pretty full agenda, actually. So,
And just to be clear, we're talking about this Washington Supreme Court workloads decision, and
Mhm.
and it's going to affect us and everybody else in significant ways. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens next.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other business for the steering committee? All right. What about public comment? Jill, do we have anyone that would like to speak to the steering committee?
We do have an attendee. If you would like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand now. No hands are raised. Thank you, everyone. No hands are raised. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jill. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend coming up, and we will see you all later. We're adjourned.
Take care.